Let's move on to 2006 with Inside Man.
Yeah, man.
My favorite Spike Lee movie. Denzel and Clive Owen are brilliant in this film. Denzel is the heart and soul of this entire story, while Clive Owen is the brilliant criminal mastermind driving the plot. The charisma and confidence that Denzel exudes throughout this entire film is palpable. It comes through the screen.
He feels like a classic cop from like a neo-noir thriller from the 50s.
Yeah, with the Denzel flair as Detective Keith Frazier. And it's contagious, the confidence this guy has on camera. And overall, it's a very clever heist movie. And I love heist movies. And it's got a highly unique plot. And the procedure of the robbery is very unique, too. We won't reveal the ending, what happens, in case you haven't seen it. But it's awesome. You got to check it out.
It's got an amazing cast because it has Denzel, Clive Owen, Christopher Plummer, Willem Dafoe, Jodie Foster, and Chiwetel Ejiofor. So it's stacked. And it's one of my favorite robbery movies. And Denzel is fantastic as this cop. And he's on the trail of Clive Owen. And he's such an intelligent guy that he knows that something's not right about this. Something's fishy. And throughout the film, he's trying to figure out what exactly is really going down in that bank.
Yeah, because are they after the cash, or what are they after? What are they there for? And the storyline of this film is, half of it is a cross-cutting of the hostage interrogation along with the real-time storyline of the actual robbery playing out. And it gives for a unique storytelling experience which keeps you guessing and constantly thinking what's going on. And the interrogation scenes with Denzel and Chiwetel were mostly ad-libbed, and when you watch it, they seem very genuine, and I'm sure they had an idea of what they wanted to say, but there are obviously several clues also throughout the film that hint at the genius behind the robbery. And the film has a very complex plot, multiple storylines, which are all connected to the bank.
Yeah, and there's also this really great scene of that kid inside the bank playing a violent video game, and it's kind of like a Grand Theft Auto knockoff. And it's super violent. He's some kind of gangbanger. And he's killing another guy, and he's also spouting gangster rap. And Spike Lee, it wasn't in the script, but Spike Lee added it because he wanted to make a comment on gangster rap and video games' obsession with violence on other people, and how it can infect young people, and how it can have negative effects on their personalities and their decision making as they grow up. And it's a really great little moment, and I'm glad he sprinkled it in because it's something that people should say more often.
Yeah. I'm a big Clive Owen fan, too, and I think he did a great job in this movie. And Spike's classic signature shots, he's two of them in this film. The opening of the film with that slow push-in of Clive Owen speaking directly to camera, and then also the shot of Denzel's character, Frazier, after the robbers shoot a hostage in the head, and then it immediately cuts to Frazier in the street, and it's that Spike Lee shot where he's just kind of it's a POV shot.
He's fixed to the camera, yeah.
It's a POV shot, and he's just floating with the camera, tracking backwards. And everything else behind him is they're moving like normal but fast paced, but he just looks like a ghost floating. And Spike uses these at highly emotional moments and intense moments in his films.
Yeah, and Denzel imbues Frazier with a lot of humility, discipline, a lot of humor, a lot of charisma. He seems like a New Yorker. And he's just fun to watch in this film. He's one of my favorite cops on screen.
It's a very fun movie with him in it. Let's move on to 2007 with American Gangster, which you love this movie.
I love this movie.
It's a crime epic. This time Denzel working with the legendary Ridley Scott, Tony's brother. It's a real-life crime drama about an outcast New York City cop who is charged with bringing down Harlem drug lord Frank Lucas. And Russell Crowe and Denzel are both enormous acting icons, and seeing them on the same movie at the same time it's so fun. However, they don't have many scenes together, which is a bummer.
They actually don't share the screen until 2.5 hours into the movie.
Yeah, when he shows up outside the front door. The cast is ridiculous with Denzel, Russell Crowe, Chiwetel Ejiofor, who he just worked with in Inside Job, Josh Brolin, John Hawkes, and even Idris Elba is in this movie.
I think this is one of Ridley Scott's most underrated movies. It's a phenomenal crime epic, and Denzel just owns this movie. This movie wouldn't work without Denzel, because he's perfect as Frank Lucas. Because Frank Lucas he's a businessman, he's a killer, he's a drug dealer, he's a gangster, he's a dangerous person, he's a bad man. But Denzel injects so much humanity, so much charm, so much charisma, so much likability, where you can't help but root for him and actually want him to succeed, even though he's selling heroin.
Yeah. And I mean, Frank Lucas, like a lot of crime lords and drug lords, they support their communities too, which Denzel does. And obviously, kind of like The Godfather, who was before him, he also did the same thing. And there's the scene with them getting the turkeys outside of the back of the van in the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And he's kind of like showing him the ropes of what it's like to be like the sort of Godfather of Harlem.
And Frank Lucas's plan is absolutely genius, because what he did in order to find such success is he cut the middleman out of the drug dealing process, and he went straight to the source in Asia. And he started buying the heroin straight from where it was grown on farms. And so by cutting out the middleman, he was able to take in all the profit. And on top of that, the heroin was the most pure by far on the street, so it was the best heroin you could buy.
Yeah, it was a very fearless journey that he made to go to Asia and basically meet the drug lord of the empire there, and to get the connection going.
And then Russell Crowe is great in this. He plays a great cop, and again, he has that same quality that Denzel has, where no matter what role he's playing, he just has that charisma. The audience can't help but love him. And I love Richie. I think he's a great character. He's a lot of fun. If he feels like someone, I feel like I know him, and he's a good guy, but he's also he messes up a lot. He can't stay with one woman for more than a day. You know, he's a kind of an absentee father, but also he's a very honorable guy, because he's famous in the department, because he's the cop that brought in $1 million cash. Everyone who meets him is like, did you really turn in $1 million? And even his partner has grown to resent the fact that they missed out on splitting $500,000 cash, because Richie can't help himself from being the honorable cop. And so it's a perfect contrast to Frank Lucas, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's a scene where they're going through cash evidence too, and they want everyone out of the room.
Yeah,
and like people still like think that I think people still think that he stole some of the cash itself.
Yeah,
some of his supervisors do as well. But he's really just a good guy. He kind of reminds me of his character in L.A. Confidential in this movie.
Yeah, very similar.
He's similar, less of a hothead, but more of like if like that character just like got married and had kids and got divorced and became a drunk. That's who Russell Crowe is in this movie.
Grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating, because in real life, after Frank Lucas was arrested by Richie and the officers, Richie actually became his lawyer, his defense lawyer for the trial, and defended Frank Lucas. And Frank Lucas served prison time, but he got out, I think, after like 15 or something years. And then he and Richie became very good friends. And Richie even had Richie become godfather to one of his own sons. So these two people who were rivals, and it was like cat and mouse game, and Richie was trying to take him down for so long, they eventually became incredible friends as they grew older.
One of the craziest scenes in this movie is when Denzel as Frank Lucas takes out Idris Elba in broad daylight. My head exploded too, besides Idris Elba's head, and it really showed you the ruthlessness of Frank Lucas, but also the power and fear he had over Harlem and what he achieved there.
20%? Here you go, 20%.
So good. Great movie, guys. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Yeah. Let's move on, man.
Let's move on. Real quick, I want to touch on Taking of Pelham 123, which came out in 2009. Another Tony Scott film, Denzel versus Travolta. I think this movie's a lot of fun. It's highly entertaining. It's clever. Plus, who doesn't love Travolta as a bad guy? It's a different character for Denzel. He's kind of like just this dorky guy who works traffic control.
I think that Denzel based his look on Spike Lee. He has the same glasses.
Kind of looks like him, yeah.
Same hair.
Yeah.
He like wears a funny
similar mannerisms too.
Similar. I feel as though he really based it on Spike Lee.
It's a good movie. It's a great what are we gonna watch tonight movie? Like I highly suggest checking it out. We won't spend too much time because it's obviously not
just like all Tony Scott's movies. Is they're a lot of fun. They're tight thrillers,
stylish.
Yeah, and Travolta's actually really great in this movie. He plays a good villain.
Definitely check this out. It's a good time.
Hell yeah.
All right, going on to 2010 real quick with The Book of Eli. This was a unique film for Denzel in terms of his career, doing something in like the post-apocalyptic sci-fi world genre. I know this isn't an amazing movie, but I enjoyed it. It's cool.
It's cool to see Denzel in a dystopian movie.
Yeah. And plus, Gary Oldman's the villain in this, and who doesn't love watching Gary Oldman?
Can't go wrong with that.
I mean, just Denzel and Gary Oldman are worth the watch. Like, that'll get me to watch any movie, basically.
But I'm sure Denzel took this role because it has a lot of religious undertones in it. He spreads gospel to the other characters, so I think this was a great role for him as a person to want to play.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really cool action scenes, and obviously Denzel is showing off his athletic prowess at age 55 years old, did all of his stunts for this movie.
What a badass.
Film also features Mila Kunis in a supporting role, and she's really great in this film too. It's a good time.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's go on to Flight in 2012. Let's stay in 2010, and we'll do the final collaboration between Tony Scott and Denzel Washington with Unstoppable.
Their second train movie.
In this one, instead of Travolta, stars Chris Pine.
So this movie is just a great action thriller. There's not an ounce of fat on it. It's just once things get going, just buckle up and watch it sprint to the finish. It's a great movie. So what happens is this massive train becomes a runaway train. Its brakes are broken off, and it's just thundering down its tracks, and it has tens of thousands of gallons of highly flammable chemicals in it. And what's happening is this train is heading for a city with a population of 100,000 people at high speeds of over 70 miles per hour. And once it reaches the city, it's gonna crash, and all of those chemicals are gonna explode and completely destroy the entire city. And so Denzel and Chris Pine play two train engineers who have to somehow get onto this runaway train and stop it from reaching that city.
This has an epic tagline to it. 1,000,000 tons, 100,000 lives in 100 minutes. That's an epic action movie tagline. That's perfect.
What's cool about this movie is there's no like villain in this movie, but what happens, this movie is a monster movie, and the train is the monster. The train is Jaws, that's the villain of the movie, is the train itself.
Yeah, it's really cool to have a villain that's not a real thing. It's an animate object.
Yeah. And on paper, this movie sounds kind of dumb, but because it's Tony Scott and because it's Denzel, they elevate it to another level and make it into this incredible action movie.
Again, like Taking of Pelham 123, a very fun train action thriller. And unfortunately, this was the last film that Tony Scott ever directed. Passed away in 2012. Great director, definitely a longtime collaborator and friend of Denzel Washington's, and has definitely helped bring him into like action stardom for mainstream audiences.